Well, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, Mark, and you've talked about this already in the way you wrote about it in the book, which is one of your most profound ideas is shift in horizons. And you've talked about how much of life we look forward and then we look back. But I want to talk about shift in horizons a little bit differently. I have a really good friend of mine who I went to college with, I've known him for 3 decades now, who was the chief astronaut at NASA. And he tells me that
Wow.
yeah, one of the most profound things for him was being up in the ISS and having that opportunity to look down. And he said it completely shifted the horizons in his life because he started to realize the true idea of a ripple of kindness or a ripple of love or a ripple of compassion when you're looking from above, how it could impact the world. And from that moment on, he would do these things that no one knew about, where even if he was up in space, he would telephone or find out about a sick child who might be suffering from cancer, and he would call them just to brighten
Mm.
their day. Or he'd go on treks in the Amazon forest to bring awareness to climate change, or he would kayak to help bring awareness to suicide in veterans. He would do all these things, but so much of us don't have that opportunity that he did. How can more of us shift our horizons?
I think that certainly, and those are amazing things you shared, certainly we can ready ourselves, but I don't know that we can will a shift in horizon. And so this is where I think that great love and great suffering have always been the great teachers. And we usually grow, human beings, by two major ways, many, but two major, one by willfully shedding and the other by being broken open. And if you don't want to willfully shed, don't worry, you'll be broken open. And it's usually a combination of both. And what, your friend had shared, which I totally agree with, is when we are broken open or we are loved open or we willfully shed the parameters of what we know so that we can grow, we glimpse the wholeness of life, like seeing the earth from space. And that changes everything because while we want to live the moment that we're in, seeing things from the whole changes. And again, it's both. We talk about, and this is where the Native Americans are famous for saying every decision needs to be considered from the perspective of 7 generations, but we're still chopping wood to warm the fire to keep the family warm. To only see from above or beyond is conceptual. And to only be in the moment is to be at the mercy of the turbulence of life. And we are asked to inhabit both. In a way that I understand this, another metaphor from the sea is we look at any part of the ocean, we see the surface and we see waves. Well, actually, if you look below, you can't tell where a wave stops and the deep begins. It's all one water. But if we only stay on the top 18 inches or 2 feet, we will be bounced around in the turbulence of the surface, which is always being disturbed by weather, by living in the world. If we feel we don't leave the surface, but if we allow all of that water, so I would say to you that top foot or two, that is the waters of our psychology that meets the world every day. But now, if we are allowed to go below, or we are allowed to go into the depth of life, we are allowed to go beyond just the framework of our opinions, whether it's going out to see the earth from space or in to see all, like my father in that moment of applesauce, everyone who ever fed a dying parent in the depths, that depth takes the edge off the turbulence of the surface. And that is the depth of spirit and being. When we live in the surface, and so what happens when we're living is we're talking about this, we're more in the depth right now. Now we'll get off this wonderful talk, and I may take the garbage thing down to the curb and trip and skin my knee. And now I'm, by its very nature, I'm drawn into the surface, but I don't have to stay there. I can feel, I can't, it's not running from it, but by going back into the depth of being, that right sizes. And we have to live in both. So let me give you like an example and a story. So the example is I go back to when I was going through, especially before my back surgery, the incredible, as your father knows, pain that I was in. I'd never experienced chronic pain before. I was right here at my desk, my studies on the second floor in our home. And I could have worked on the first floor. I wanted to be in my study. Well, during that time, it took me like a half hour to get up the stairs because I had to take each step, wait for the pain to stop, lean on the banister. Okay. So, an example of what we're talking about now is I would sit here and I couldn't escape the pain and the fear that was in me, but I had to start to ask, okay, the whole world and life is not in pain and afraid right now. I am. So, where is the nearest thing to me that's not afraid or in pain? It was the floor beneath my feet. It's the ceiling of this study. It's the sky above the ceiling. It's the earth that's holding up the foundation of our house. And not escaping my pain and fear, but allowing myself to feel it, and what is holding it is akin to your friend helping a child, but seeing the earth from space. So the story, which is, I love these anonymous teaching stories from centuries. This is an ancient Hindu teaching story about how to meet pain and fear, which also speaks about this in a very wonderful way. So in this story, it's an ancient Hindu story. There's a master and an apprentice always. And the master, the truth be known, finds the apprentice very annoying because all he does is complain about life, complain, complain. So the master says to him, I want you to get a handful of salt, put it in a glass of water, and bring it to me quietly. So he does. And the master says, drink from the glass. So he drinks, he spits it out. And the master says, what's the matter? And the apprentice says, it's bitter. The master says, I want you to get the same exact amount of salt, cup it in your hands, and follow me quietly. And he does. And the master leads him to a lake. He says, put the salt in the lake. He does. He says, now drink. So this student kneels, he scoops some water, it dribbles down his chin. The master says, well, and he says, oh, it's fresh. And the master says, stop being a glass, become a lake. Stop being a glass, become a lake. Look from the whole perspective of the earth, from the ocean of spirit. Be where you are, but let everything in. Because what that ancient anonymous story is saying is we will never eliminate fear and pain, but we can right size it by enlarging our sense of things.
So
By
true.
enlarging our sense of things. So we may hear this story, people who are listening with us, and say, well, it's not good to be a glass. I won't do that. Well, yes, you will, and I will, and you will, because that's how fear and pain say hello. But we don't have to stay there. So the practice question, the daily practice question is what experiences, relationships, and practices, yes, experiences, relationships, and practices are in your toolbox to enlarge your sense of things when you stumble into fear and pain and worry and numbness and despair. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
And even there may be times when I know what I need to do and I can't do it. And then I got to call you up and say, help.